Ethan Carter was the man every magazine dreamed of featuring on its cover. Chiseled jawline, ocean blue eyes, and the kind of quiet confidence that made people listen when he entered a room. At just 30, he had built a tech empire from scratch, turning late nights of code and coffee into a billion-dollar brand. His mansion sat on a cliff top, surrounded by endless views of the Pacific. Yet inside, it was a palace echoing with silence. Ethan had all the things people chased: fast cars, tailored suits, and a staff that ensured his life was seamless. But none of it mattered. Not really, because behind those polished gates and million-dollar smiles was a man who had never been kissed, never held, never even told he was truly loved. He grew up in a house of cold wealth, where emotions were seen as weakness, and love was something read about in books but never experienced. His father was a ruthless businessman, his mother a socialite too obsessed with appearances to notice her son's loneliness. By 15, Ethan had taught himself not to expect affection. By 20, he had mastered the art of hiding behind his ambition. He dated a few women, mostly arranged by friends or PR teams, but each time he felt a disconnect, like their eyes saw his bank account, not his soul. He craved something deeper, real, pure, a love not built on money or fame, but connection. And so, he waited, patiently, quietly, hoping that maybe one day someone would see the boy beneath the billionaire. He spent evenings staring out over the ocean, wondering what it would be like to share a sunset with someone who actually knew him. Not Ethan Carter, the CEO, but Ethan, the boy who still loved classic novels, who painted in secret, who was scared of being touched because no one ever taught him what gentle felt like. His heart wasn't guarded by choice. It was untouched because no one ever dared to reach it. But fate has a strange way of finding those who hide. And just when Ethan had quietly accepted a life of solitude, a single notification from an exclusive, high-security dating platform popped up on his phone. A match, one profile, one name, one chance. It was Emily. He didn't know it then, but that simple swipe would change everything. Because sometimes, the loneliest hearts are the ones that love the deepest. And Ethan Carter's heart, it was waiting to finally beat for someone real. As Ethan stared at the glowing notification on his phone, a strange flutter danced in his chest. Curiosity, maybe even hope. Her name was Emily Rose. Her profile picture was simple. No filters, no exaggerated poses, just a candid photo of her laughing in the sunlight, eyes crinkling at the edges, her long chestnut blonde waves catching the golden hour glow. She wasn't a supermodel or an influencer, just real. Her bio was short but sincere. Artist, dreamer, waiting for something that feels like home. That line hit Ethan like a wave. Clicking on her profile opened a window into a completely different world. Emily was 23, lived in a small town on the East Coast, and spent her days painting, running a local art class for kids, and occasionally helping at her aunt's flower shop. Her life was modest but vibrant, full of color and connection. Everything Ethan's wasn't. He hesitated before messaging her, his fingers trembling slightly as he typed a simple, "Hi, Emily. Your smile feels like summer." Seconds turned into minutes before she replied. But when she did, it wasn't just a message. It was warmth. "Hi, Ethan. I had to Google you. I hope that's okay. You look powerful, but your eyes look like they missed something." And just like that, the ice around Ethan's heart cracked. They talked for hours that night. No small talk, real talk. She didn't ask about his money or fame. She asked about his favorite books, if he ever danced alone in his kitchen, if he believed people could find soulmates. He told her about the beach he watched every night and how he always saved the last cookie for no one. Emily laughed, not to impress, but because she genuinely found him funny. She told him about how she'd never really been in love. Not because she didn't want to be, but because no one ever made her feel safe enough to open that part of her heart. Her past was filled with people who misunderstood her softness, her curves, her passion. But Ethan didn't flinch. He listened. He saw her. And Emily, in return, saw the boy inside the billionaire. In the weeks that followed, they developed a rhythm. Late-night calls filled with laughter, whispered dreams, shared silences that somehow felt louder than words. They sent each other photos, Ethan's paintings that he never showed anyone, Emily's sketches of sunsets she imagined sharing with him. One night she told him she believed love was like music, meant to be felt, not just heard. That night, Ethan sat at his piano and played her a melody he made up on the spot, sending her a voice note. She cried when she heard it. Not because it was perfect, but because it was him. Slowly, fear gave way to trust. And without ever touching, without ever meeting, two souls that once lived on opposite coasts began to fall for each other in a way that felt destined. But just as their bond deepened, life threw in a twist. A gallery in New York offered to feature Emily's work. On the exact weekend Ethan was supposed to fly out and meet her for the first time. Two dreams pulling in two directions. And for the first time, love had to prove it could wait, even when the heart was aching to leap. The night before Emily's art exhibition in New York, they sat on a video call, both quiet, neither wanting to say the one thing on their minds. I wish you were here. Ethan, dressed in a soft hoodie, leaned back on his leather couch, watching Emily paint final touches on one of her pieces, her brow furrowed, cheeks flushed with excitement and pressure. You'll be brilliant, he whispered. Emily smiled, but her eyes held that ache. The ache of almost. They had come so far in so little time, two hearts unraveling layers over phone calls and stolen voice notes. But this was the first real test. Would success take precedence over connection? Would distance dilute what was building between them? Ethan had cleared his entire weekend to be with her, even had a private flight booked, but now he hesitated. Not because he doubted her worth, but because he didn't want to stand in the way of her dream. Go, he told her softly. Show the world your light. Emily paused, lips trembling. You are the first person who's ever told me that, she said. Not to shrink, not to stay small for their comfort. And then, in that quiet moment, something shifted. Love, real love, started to feel like freedom. In the days that followed, they couldn't be together physically, but their connection only deepened. They talked every night, no matter how late. He sent flowers to her gallery with a note that read, You're already art. She sent him a sketch of a faceless man and woman holding hands standing on the edge of the ocean. Her way of saying, someday. Ethan found himself smiling more, sleeping better, creating again. Emily was becoming his muse, his mirror, his peace. But the twist came unexpectedly. An article broke online. Mysterious billionaire sends lavish gift to unknown artist. Romance rumors swirl. Suddenly, Emily was thrust into the spotlight. Journalists flooded her social media. Her quiet life wasn't so quiet anymore. Ethan offered to pull back, protect her. I don't want to hurt your career, he said. But Emily shook her head. You're not a scandal. You're my story. Still, pressure mounted. Her art was praised, but her personal life was questioned. Was she chasing love or money? She knew the truth, but the world didn't. In a moment of raw honesty, she posted a picture of one of Ethan's secret paintings, the one he had only shared with her, and wrote, He gave me this before he ever gave me flowers. This is who he is. This is why I choose him. The post went viral, not because of his fame, but because of her words, pure, brave. And just like that, the noise died down. The world began to see what Ethan already knew. Emily wasn't just beautiful. She was the kind of woman who didn't love loudly, but truly. And while they still hadn't met, they had already built something deeper than many who share the same bed for years. But fate, never one to stay quiet, had another twist in store. Ethan, moved by everything she'd risked for him, decided to act. Without telling her, he changed his flight. Not to visit, not to meet, but to propose. Ethan's heart raced as the jet soared through the clouds, his hand clutching a small velvet box that felt heavier than the world. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, and designed by him, set with a sapphire that reminded him of the way Emily's eyes sparkled when she laughed. He didn't tell anyone, not even his assistant. This moment had to be real, unscripted. He wasn't flying in as a billionaire. He was flying in as a man in love. Meanwhile, Emily was lost in her own world at the gallery, completely unaware. She wore a flowing cream dress speckled with paint she hadn't bothered to wash off, too caught in the whirlwind of being seen, celebrated, and slightly overwhelmed. Her phone buzzed, but she didn't check it. Ethan had gone quiet for the past few hours, which she understood. Maybe he was just giving her space. She missed him, though. Missed his calm voice, his thoughtful pauses. Outside the gallery, the night air was crisp. A violinist, whom Ethan had hired earlier in the day without revealing his identity, began to play just across the street. Soft, haunting music drifting into the space like a signal. Emily stepped out to breathe, curious. That's when she saw the roses, hundreds of them, scattered along the pavement, forming a path. At the end of it, under a streetlight, stood Ethan. No suits, no bodyguards. Just him, real, nervous, and breathtakingly vulnerable. Emily froze, tears instantly welling in her eyes. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, walking toward him as if in a dream. Ethan reached for her hand, his own shaking. "I couldn't wait any longer to know if forever starts with you." Her eyes widened. She gasped as he dropped to one knee, pulling the velvet box from his coat. "Emily Rose," he said, voice cracking, "you made me feel more in 3 months than I've felt in 30 years. You saw me before the world knew me, loved me before I even knew how to love myself. I don't want to waste another second wondering what could be. Will you marry me?" The world went still. Even the city's usual chaos seemed to pause. Emily covered her mouth, laughter and sobs tangled in her throat. "Yes," she breathed, then louder, stronger. "Yes." The small crowd nearby erupted into spontaneous cheers, phones capturing a moment that would later melt hearts across social media. But in that instant, there was no audience. Just two souls finding home in each other. They embraced, the violinist still playing, and as Ethan whispered, "You've just made me the richest man alive," Emily kissed him softly for the first time, not for the cameras, not for the fairy tale, but for the truth they had both fought to find. But even in that perfect moment, fate had its own sense of timing, because as they stood locked in each other's arms, neither of them noticed the camera crew quietly setting up across the street. A viral storm was about to begin. The days following the proposal felt like a whirlwind of joy, excitement, and an overwhelming sense of disbelief for Emily. Her heart swelled each time she looked at the ring on her finger, the sapphire shining like a promise, a future she never thought would be possible. Ethan was everywhere, but never too much. He was there in the quiet moments, in the way he made her coffee with the same care he had given to their love, in the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, like he was seeing a dream that finally came true. They planned the wedding with the same sincerity that had defined their relationship, simple, elegant, just for them. They chose a private estate, nestled between sweeping hills and an enchanted forest, the air thick with the scent of wildflowers. The ceremony itself was intimate. Only their closest friends, family, and a few of their most trusted advisors. Emily wore a dress made of lace and silk, its delicate layers flowing like the petals of a flower in the breeze. But it was her smile that truly shone. She stood at the altar, eyes locked with Ethan's, her heart beating wildly in her chest. The vows they exchanged were heartfelt, filled with promises of patience, trust, and an enduring love that would never fade. As Ethan placed the ring on her finger, his voice wavered, filled with emotion. "You are my home, Emily. Where you go, I will follow, with love and trust that will never end." Emily, her hands trembling, smiled through her tears and whispered, "I'll be the one who makes you feel safe. Always. I promise." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the entire estate seemed to sigh in relief, as if the universe itself had agreed that these two people, against all odds, against time and distance, had found each other. They shared their first kiss as a married couple, a kiss that was tender and full of a deep, quiet passion that only two people who had taken their time to truly know each other could feel. The reception was held in the estate's garden, the tables adorned with hundreds of candles and soft, twinkling lights. Ethan held Emily close as they danced under the stars. the music wrapping around them like a love song only they could hear. But as their guests celebrated, a subtle tension lingered in the air, unnoticed by most. Rumors had already begun to swirl. A few eager reporters had caught wind of the event, and photos of the billionaire and his bride had already made their way across tabloids and social media. The public wanted to know everything, how a young artist from a small town had captured the heart of a self-made billionaire. They were labeled an unexpected power couple, but Emily didn't care about the labels. She cared about Ethan, about the man who, despite the flashing lights and attention, was still the one who made her feel safe, loved, and seen. And when the last song played, as the night stretched into a soft, cool morning, they shared one more moment alone, a quiet conversation under the oak tree, where Ethan whispered, "This is just the beginning." Emily smiled, taking his hand. "Our story's already perfect," she said, the world around them fading into nothingness as they stood together, just the two of them, bound not by wealth or fame, but by a love so genuine it needed no approval. As the last of the wedding guests left, Ethan and Emily slipped away, their hands intertwined, the weight of the day still humming between them. They walked together quietly through the garden, where the scent of jasmine still lingered in the air. The honeymoon suite was waiting for them, a cozy, candlelit room with soft, rich textures and a warmth that felt like it was made just for them. Ethan gently closed the door behind them, and in that moment, they were alone. The world outside could wait. It was just the two of them now. Emily looked at Ethan, her eyes soft, unsure of how to navigate the space between them. She had never been with anyone like this, so loved, so safe. Ethan, too, was unsure. Despite all he had, despite all the luxury and control he'd built, this moment felt unfamiliar, fragile, like something too precious to rush. They both had lived lives in which love was theoretical, something dreamed of but never truly felt. But tonight, everything was different. Ethan moved first, slowly, lifting Emily's chin with his hand, his eyes searching hers. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice low, vulnerable. She nodded, her chest tight with the emotions that swirled inside her. "More than anything," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Slowly, they undressed the layers between them. Not just the clothes, but the fears, the doubts, the hesitations they had carried for so long. Ethan was gentle, never rushing, as if each touch, each whisper, was meant to heal the unspoken scars they both carried. Their kisses were soft, exploratory, as if they were learning each other for the first time. It wasn't about passion or the physicality of the moment. It was about a connection that transcended the touch of skin. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as Ethan held her close, their bodies aligned in a way that felt like fate had designed it that way. She could feel the love in every movement, the trust in every breath. Ethan's hands trembled, but it wasn't fear, it was awe. Awe at how someone could make him feel so completely. Their first night together wasn't about any kind of expectation. It was about making a promise, not just with words, but with actions. A promise that they would be there, for the big moments and the small ones, with open hearts. They fell asleep, wrapped in each other's arms, the night quiet except for the soft sound of their breathing. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt peace, a peace he had never known before, but knew he would never give up. Emily, too, felt that calm in her heart. She wasn't just holding him. She was holding the life she had dreamed of and the love she thought was impossible. That night, under the weight of the stars and the softness of the sheets, they learned a simple truth. Love was not something you searched for. It was something that found you, quietly without warning, and changed everything. As weeks turned into months, the bond between Ethan and Emily deepened, growing stronger with each passing day. They weren't just partners. They were each other's sanctuary, the quiet space where all the noise of the world melted away. The whirlwind of wedding celebrations, interviews, and social media scrutiny faded into the background as they focused on building their future. Emily's art continued to flourish, gaining recognition in galleries across the country. But it was her inner peace that shone the brightest, because with Ethan, she found herself. For the first time, she no longer had to hide behind her artwork or stay small to fit into a world that didn't understand her. Ethan, too, began to live a fuller life, one not dictated by business deals or expectations, but by love and connection. His empire grew, but now it was fueled by something deeper than ambition. It was fueled by his desire to create a life that made Emily feel as cherished as she made him feel. They traveled the world together, not to escape, but to discover, to learn new cultures, new perspectives, and to share every sunset, every laughter, and every quiet moment in between. On the surface, they seemed like the perfect couple, rich, successful, admired, but their love was built on something far more precious than wealth. It was built on trust, understanding, and the kind of devotion that doesn't need to be flaunted for the world to see. A year after their wedding, Ethan took Emily to the same spot where he had proposed, under the stars, on the edge of a cliff overlooking the ocean. This time, though, there were no roses or cameras, just the sound of the waves crashing below them. He turned to her, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You were the dream I didn't know how to ask for," he said softly. Emily smiled, her hand in his, the same warmth in her heart as that first day they met. "I was waiting for the dream I didn't know I deserved," she replied. They both knew in that moment that their story was far from over. It had just begun. The true beauty of their love wasn't in the grand gestures or the fairy tale moments. It was in the quiet mornings spent making coffee together, the spontaneous dances in their living room, the long conversations about everything and nothing, and the understanding that no matter what came their way, they would always have each other. No more distance, no more doubts. Just a lifetime of love, laughter, and a bond that only grew stronger. Together they had created their own fairy tale, one written not in pages, but in the unspoken moments that made life feel like magic.